Friends, if the service wasn't so tightly timed today, I'd make us do that again and make you all smile while you did it. Anyway, folks, during this month of November, we have been exploring the kind of cost of sailing. Our theme is Sail On this year, and we've been exploring what does it cost. We've been doing that concurrently with our stewardship connection, and it's been great fun. We've followed the story of Moses, and I have to tell you that at times the story of Moses has been magnificent and uplifting. You know, the way he kind of became a citizen who had a foot both in the Hebrew world from which his ancestors came and in the Pharaoh's kingdom into which he was adopted, and these very inspirational things. So I got to tell you that choosing the scripture for this week was terrible. Because the crossing of the Red Sea was a tremendous cost for both the Hebrew people who were fleeing and leaving everything that was familiar in their life, and for the Egyptians who couldn't easily let go of their slaves, and so they were drowned in their pursuit. It is a horrific story. And here we see we're on the other side, the Hebrew people are on the other side. And where we started to read today was Miriam, Moses and Aaron's sister, who's dancing and making a celebration. The passage we left out was Moses' song. And it was like just too spiteful and vengeful to even read in church. You know, it was like he was doing the happy dance because everybody got killed, and he was sure that that proved the Lord was on his side. He was kind of doing the dance of might makes right when you got a mighty God on your side. So we had to do something about a celebration today. So we started with reading about Miriam's dance with the tambourine and leading all the people in a celebration. But even then, sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. Horse and rider he has thrown into the sea. What are we going to do with this? You know, in a way, I want it to just become invisible. But you know, we live in a time where we more and more hear this strand of belief that might makes right, and that somehow God is on one side and not the other side. So this is a strand of human belief that we actually still have to contend with. So us not reading it in church, although it makes the service feel better, isn't actually true and honest to human life as we find it. But there is this other strand, this strand that says, let the people celebrate together and dance and have joy, and that downplays the violence and plays up the freedom that these Hebrew people were now going to experience. I have to give you a quick lesson, okay? In the Bible, in the development of God. So don't glaze over. But back when this story is, if this is a continuum, okay? Back where this story is, they lived in a culture that had many gods, and there was a rivalry amongst the gods. And the Hebrew people were using, along with a few others, were developing this idea that there's actually one God. Now, that was a foreign concept. So, the first thing they did was say, our God's stronger than your God. Our God's stronger than your God. And they do that for a good part of the Old Testament. Because they're trying to establish what will be the nature of this God. And so God's nature keeps evolving. And by the time we get to the prophets, God isn't this vengeful, killing God. God is developed into a God that cares for the poor, that wants a justice in a society, that is concerned for the well-being of the wider community. And then, take a big jump, and we come to Jesus. And you'll notice that Jesus doesn't fight back. Jesus isn't so violent. He overturns some tables, but he never kills people. Right? He himself would rather be killed than to raise a hand. Now that's the evolution of the people's understanding of God. And in the 2,000 years since the Bible stopped being added to, a big mistake in my mind, we have continued to evolve our understanding of who God is. And so although these historical strands are woven into the fabric of the human community, we have actually moved to a time where actually justice is stronger than hate. And violence simply perpetuates itself. The Hebrew people in this passage, at this early stage of development of who God is, are looking for God to totally take care of them. And so they go from one thing to another, and you can see in even a few 7 verses, they are again complaining. What shall we drink? God, you got us out here, now look after us. As the story evolves, and as the understanding of God evolves, that sense of God's taken care of everything is going to disappear. Right? So now, we believe that we work together for good. And that God is powerless to make huge changes without the willingness of the human community to see a new vision. Okay, so that's all extraneous to today's sermon. But it does make sense of the passage. What I wanted to focus on today is Miriam's dance and her celebration. And just how right it feels that when you come to the end of a chapter in your life, when you come to the end of a stewardship connection, when you come to some milestone in your life, it makes sense to stop and to make a celebration. That's where that's where church came from. That's why we have all these celebrations, all these rituals and ceremonies. Because we don't want life to just keep going so fast that we never have a chance to stop and say, wow, this life is something special. This community is something special. What we've accomplished together, well, that's something special. Our brains are hardwired. That reptilian brain that we have, if you do the anatomy of the brain, it's programmed to only identify threat. So it's always looking for, is this a time I should run? Is this a time I should fight? And so that's why we have to stop ourselves. And I think it's a spiritual practice to celebrate. Because our brains would just have us keep going and looking for the next threat. Whereas our spiritual practice and our trust and faith in God would say, we can stop on the riverbank, having made the successful crossing. And we can dance, and we can play the tambourine, and we can celebrate as a community. And we have to learn to do that. Somebody said, I have her name here. I liked it. Loretta LaRoche said, life is short. Wear your party pants. Nelson Mandela said, remember to celebrate milestones as you prepare for the road ahead. And any who have read his biography know that even while he was in prison, he learned to celebrate when a bird would come within the vision of his cell. And it was a celebration. So today, we're going to celebrate. Because we've done our stewardship connection, and we've done okay. We sent out 175 packages, and more than a quarter of those have been returned. People have given generously for 2018 Christmas presents to St. Aidan's, almost $4,000. People have increased their par givings. We know that over the next few days and weeks, there's going to be more intention forms returned. But what we're celebrating is not those numbers. What we're celebrating is that we as a community are taking on projects. We're building and developing our church life. We're embracing and semi-embracing a new vision. We're taking seriously what we're hearing about what church life is going to be like. And we're having hope in the future generations, and so we're going to prepare a platform from which they also can engage the stories of Jesus. And that is worth celebrating. That is worth having a lunch and taking counsel together, patting ourselves on the back, and we're even going to raise a toast. I wanted to have 3 toasts, people said, no, you don't drink it all in the first gulp, so we're only having one big toast, okay? So feel free to drink as much as you want. Because it's not the externals of the celebration. It is the recognition that together we have accomplished something good. Well, I got to stop now. But what a great journey it has been this month. And next month, next week, Advent starts.